this practice is to support the gut-brain connection. So what connects our gut and brain is our vagus nerve. Messages from the gut translate via this nerve to the brain. And so when we experience stress, when we initiate a survival response, fight, flight, or freeze, this affects our gut and the signaling of our gut to our brain and vice versa. So you might have noticed in your own experience, when you experience stress, you can feel butterflies, anxiety, that anxious feeling in your belly. So that can create a tightening of the fascia in the upper abdomen. We also have a connection of what's called the psoas muscle. It's a hip flexor that contracts in response to stress. It draws us inwards. It's a biological, physical response that allows this sense of protection and safety of our more vulnerable side, our front side of our body. When it's continually contracting, not only does this affect the posture, but it can also affect where the psoas muscle inserts into the spine. This area is just here, kind of just below the bra strap area for a woman, around the area of the kidneys and the adrenal glands. So this part of the back can contract and feed into and affect our diaphragms. When there is a constriction, when there is tension in the upper abdomen, it constricts or inhibits blood and qi flow in the gut. And then our gut can start to experience irregularities, things like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. All kinds of digestive issues can arise from stress. So what we want to do here is we want to unpack the tension that's accumulated in our diaphragm, this area of the body. In our practice today, we're going to work with that connection to the psoas muscle, as well as working with the diaphragm directly. And then when this is nice and open, we can breathe deeper down into the belly. When we take slow, deep breaths into the lower abdomen, it stimulates parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest and repair. It slows and calms everything down. So in this practice, we're going to invite a deeper, fuller breath. And we're also going to add some neuromodulation, which is where we use sound to massage more life force down into the belly and down into our guts. So let's begin. When we're working with the vagus nerve, it's a bottom-up style of practice. And what I mean by that is that the vagus nerve travels from the viscera up to the brain. The majority of the neural messaging is moving from the body to the brain rather than the other way around. We recognize now that our guts create our serotonin, our feel-good chemicals in our body. Over 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. And when we have experiences of intense stress, it throws out our gut flora. It also contracts the muscles of the diaphragm, which inhibits our capacity to breathe and the blood flow and qi flow and signaling to and from the gut. So it's really important to look after our gut when we're dealing with stress management. So we're going to use a few props in today's practice. We're going to use what's called a fascial ball. So if you don't have one of these balls, you can use similar shaped balls, like a small soccer ball, for example. However, it's good to deflate it slightly so it's not super hard, but it's a little malleable. Also, if you want to get a little more isolated, you can use smaller balls like tennis balls or soft balls, for example. Today, I'm going to use this fascia ball. Another thing we're going to use today is a yoga wheel. It's wonderful for doing back bends over. You can use it in all kinds of ways. I highly recommend getting one of these. If you don't have one, you could also do the practice over one of the larger yoga balls that a lot of people use to sit on at their desks. So you can find variations, but I would definitely recommend getting one of these yoga wheels if you can. So let's get started. And we're going to start just by dropping into the belly. So as you come into an upright seat, resting your hands comfortably on your knees or in your lap, take a moment to lengthen up through your spine and feel the base of your body, those contact points, the buttocks, the legs and the feet, and where they connect with the ground. And take a moment just to anchor down, to sink into that connection. And when you feel like you've arrived in your body, then gently opening the eyes. And we're going to start with a practice that helps to deflate some of that energy that stores in this area of the diaphragm. You know that feeling of butterflies in your stomach when you're experiencing anxiety or stress? It contracts the fascia in the diaphragm. So this is a really good way to release that. So we're going to use our thumb as our massage tool today, but we're going to start by finding this area. So just underneath your sternum, so where your two ribs meet, just here underneath your sternum, you're going to place 3 finger widths underneath that space. And then just underneath that finger, that third finger, you're going to take your thumb, and your thumb is pressing in towards the belly, and you're kind of in a fist position. Then we take the opposite hand, and you're going to apply the appropriate pressure for you by pressing into the side of that, and the thumb will extend in towards that tissue. Now, if there's a lot of tension there, you might feel like projectile vomiting. So work within your own sensitivity, really feeling into what's the right pressure for you. We're going to make 21 circles in a clockwise direction. So we start just by finding the pressure that's right for you, and you're just making these circles. And as you're doing so, you're really listening to the tissue underneath the thumb. So noticing if the tissue is quite stubborn, if the density, the tension is quite chronic, it might take a little while. Maybe the tissue starts to become responsive, and if that's the case, you might apply a little more pressure. So you're just working at the speed and the pressure that is working for your muscles. So you're not kind of like thinking something else and just going through emotion. You're here. You're present in your body, and you're participating by listening and responding to the tissue, noticing if the tissue kind of welcomes you in. And when you've come to 21 on this side, we do the same thing on the other side. So you'll just place your thumb in that same position, find your fist, opposite hand, and this time we move in an anti-clockwise direction. The tissue might be a little more supple at this stage. You might be able to go a little deeper. So you're just exploring. Be aware that your shoulders don't start to creep up towards your ears. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Keep your teeth separate so the jaw stays soft and a little relaxed open. And just getting a sense of going a little deeper if it's available, as you're coming to round up those 21 rotations in this anti-clockwise direction. And then when you're ready, following your own rhythm, your own count, you'll release that and take a moment just to rest the hands by the sides. And just feel what's happening in this tissue of the diaphragm. Nice. And then let's start to direct our breath a little bit deeper. So as you inhale, breathe first into your belly and then into your ribs and lastly into your chest to see if you can get a nice deep inflation of that lower rib cage. And then when you exhale, relaxing everything back. And let's do that a few more times. Inhale first down into the belly, then expand your ribs and then up into the chest. So we're really exercising that diaphragm now. And then when you exhale, let everything soften back down. One last time. As you breathe right down into your belly, what that's doing is pushing your diaphragm down, and you'll feel the lower ribs expand, stretching that out. And then exhale, coming back to normal. This is a really useful practice to unpack some of that belly tension, and it's good done regularly if you're somebody that experiences a lot of butterflies in the stomach. So you may have noticed that when you have a sympathetic nervous system response, when that vagal brake comes off and we go into fight or flight, that we start to have an impact on our respiration. We experience a shorter, shallower breath. We can, or we hold our breath altogether. And what's happening there is this tension and lift in the diaphragm. So we want to massage out some of that tension. So another really effective practice to get into this deeper connective tissue, this fascia in the upper abdomen, is to use the fascial ball. So this definitely goes much deeper. So work as feels appropriate for your body. So the placement of the ball really is wherever you feel the most tension. So when we're using a ball this size, it covers quite a large surface area. So it's really just on this whole upper belly area. So sort of above the navel, and you'll tuck it just underneath the ribs there. If you've got a smaller ball, like a tennis ball, then you can place it a little more on the particular location. So now we're going to come and we're going to lie down on our bellies. So you'll come onto all fours and bring yourself down to the floor. So we're going to take the ball and we're going to place it in the position that's right for us. So again, it's that space just underneath the ribs, and you'll feel where it presses against the tense tissue. So in the beginning, you want to stay up on your forearms with as little body weight bearing down as possible. You want to be mindful that the shoulders relax down from the ears, and then you can slowly rest the head. And just like you would in a yin yoga practice, for example, over time, you can allow, as the tissue softens, to go a little deeper in the shape. A nice way to support the crown. So you can bring your forehead just to rest on the fists, one stacked on top of the other, keeping those shoulders relaxed. And you'll notice that the tissue starts to soften. Now, as the tissue starts to soften, it can be quite likely that there's intensity. So if sensation is intensifying, what we're exploring here is how we can settle and expand our window of tolerance. Now, what that doesn't mean is, it doesn't mean we're going to override our body. If it gets too much, it's too much. We come on out. But what we are doing is noticing that initial reaction, that initial impulse to move away, and seeing if we can relax around that for a moment. If we can notice that any thoughts of aversion arise and pass, and we can just let the thoughts dance on by while we stay grounded in the body and we stay grounded in a slow, relaxed breath. And the more you focus on your exhalation, the more you'll be able to just kind of melt over the ball. Now, again, depending on how much tension is stored in this part of the body is how uncomfortable it's going to be. But know that as you practice more regularly, that tension will start to unpack and your window of tolerance will expand, and you'll be able to build more and more resilience, and the tissue will soften and open over time. So the amount of time you rest here is entirely up to you, but a generalized approximation could be anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes. I'm going to stay here for a few more breaths. Of course, if it becomes available, you can come all the way down, resting your forehead on the back of your hands. And then as you're ready, you'll come out nice and slow. And as we come on up, we simply remove the ball and we lie down on our bellies. You can keep the forehead resting on the hands or turn to the head to the side. Now that we've softened this tissue in the diaphragm, we're going to create a little space there. So with a little movement, as you press firmly onto your knees, inhale, lift your collarbone out of your pubic bone, lengthening your chin to the sky. And then exhale, curl your pubic bone to your navel, your chin to your chest, and lean on back, straightening those elbows. Inhale, lift and lengthen, and really focus on that area of the diaphragm as you breathe in, spreading the ribs. And then when you exhale, rounding and stretch the back of the diaphragm out. As you inhale, lengthening and widening through that upper belly area. And then when you're exhaling, leaning back into those kidneys, giving them a good stretch. One last time like that. Feel as if you're lengthening and widening the whole front line. Press into those knees and then round and stretch that out. Nice. Let's make little circles and let's orientate those circles from the rib cage. So let's start by inhale, lifting your chest and then taking it out to the side. Bring the chest back and then over in the opposite direction. Lift the ribs, ribs to the side, out to the back, opposite direction. And now we're going to start to roll that into a smoother movement. But the movement is coming from the ribs. So you're really massaging this whole area of the mid-thoracics, whole area of those front ribs and the diaphragm and that area you've been working. Let's reverse that now, opposite direction. and really focusing on that mind-body connection. Where you take your attention, energy is going to follow. So really feeling the tissue as you're massaging it. And then release. We're going to do some gentle rolls of this tissue. So it looks like this. You're going to lift first up through the chest, then up through the ribs, then up through the pubic bone, and then roll that back down. Up through the ribs, up through the rib cage and belly, and then rolling it down. And let's smooth that out a few directions. So it's like the belly rolls that you do if you're a belly dancer. And you're just massaging. You might even hear a little gurgling as you're moving the juices around in that space you've created. Good. And then we're going to do it over to the side. So as we face one direction, lifting up through the chest, up through the ribs, up through the belly, rolling back down. And then in the other direction. So this is really nice to get things moving. After the massage, come back to the center. Last time. And then relax your soft belly. So when that sympathetic nervous system is spiked, when that vagal brake comes off, when our system goes into that fight or flight response, we also, another muscle in the body called the psoas, that also engages. And it does that to protect the system. It does that to offer some safety. So the hip flexors, the deep psoas muscle, its job is to contract the front body. So it allows this protective mechanism. However, what happens is this part of the body, if it's contracting consistently, can stay short and tight. Where the psoas joins at the spine, if it's contracted, this can also affect this whole area of the diaphragm. Another one of the reasons that we get that contraction in the belly. So a really effective way of unpacking that is to work with the yoga wheel. So you want to place your yoga wheel roughly underneath the bra strap area. So in that kind of mid-back range, and you'll feel it in your body. If it's tight in your body, you'll be able to notice. So you place it over that area. And then we're going to bring our hands to interlace behind the head. And we take a moment with our knees bent to press into our feet. And you're not arching and rounding. As you press into the feet, you're pressing this part of the spine back into the wheel. There's a subtle shortening of the front body. And there's this sense of this part of the body lengthening and widening, kind of squeezing into and fanning out over the wheel. It should feel really good. So you can stay here for a while and start to take a few deep breaths. You'll notice that it creates a little release and therefore more space to breathe in that area of the lower rib cage. So as we're resting here, as you inhale, take a nice deep breath in that expands the ribs, pressing firmly into your wheel, and then exhale, releasing that. Nice big breath in. Each time swelling the ribs a little fuller and deeper, and then exhale, coming down. Let's do that one more time, just like that. Inhale. Exhale. This time we're going to alternate opposite arms and opposite legs. As you inhale into your diaphragm, lengthen your left leg and extend your right arm. And you'll feel a little deeper opening on that right side of the diaphragm. Then release that. And then other side. Nice deep breath in as you breathe into the diaphragm. It creates a little twist and a little stretch of that left side. And then release that. And we're going to continue flowing with a smooth breath. Each time you inhale, breathing fully and deeply, pressing the spine into the wheel, and then each time you exhale, coming on in. Now you can continue for as long as you like. For me, when there's a lot of density and contraction in this part of my body, I tend to do this for at least 5 minutes. In our time together today, we'll continue for about another 5 or 6 rounds. Each time you breathe, see if it's available to breathe not only into the front of your lower ribs, but out into the sides, back into the wheel. So you're breathing back into your kidneys. Slow, big, deep breaths in. And then nice big releases out. Let's do a few more rounds. Getting a little more length through the spine in these last few. Really reaching up through the fingertips as you press and breathe. Great. Let's do one more time each side. And then release. In this next practice of diaphragmatic breathing, we're going to breathe right down to the belly. Now, you can do this sitting upright, but personally, I prefer to do it lying down. So let's come on down to the floor. So when you come down to lie on your spine, have your knees comfortably bent. The idea here is you're comfortable and relaxed. So I'm resting my head on a cushion here. You can find what supports you. You might want to be lying on your mat or on some blankets or both. And then we're going to take our hands and we're going to place them down on the belly. So now that we've opened up this part of the body, the idea is we can take fuller, deeper breaths right down into the belly that massages and expands our diaphragms. So with your hands resting as you inhale, you want to get a sense of you're pushing up against your hands and your hands are lifting up towards the ceiling. So go ahead and close the eyes if that's comfortable, or find a drishti, something unmoving. Relax your shoulders, soften your jaw. Reconnect with those contact points. Notice where your head is resting against your cushion, where your shoulders, your spine and buttocks are against the ground, soles of your feet on the earth. And as you settle back into your connection with the support of the ground beneath you, start to notice your breath. And at first, just merging awareness with breath, just familiarizing, making your home in the breath. And then we're going to start to direct our breath all the way down into the deep belly. On your next inhalation, breathe so fully into the belly that the belly expands and rises. As you exhale, let your navel soften slowly down towards the spine. Feel your whole body melting and sinking into the ground. Each inhalation, slow, full, and deep. Breathe into your belly. Belly swells beneath the palms, and then on the exhale, belly softens slowly and drops effortlessly down towards the spine. Taking slow, deep breaths. Follow your own breath's rhythm. And every time you're exhaling, feel as if you're unpacking another layer of tension. Each inhalation slower and deeper. So you're breathing all the way down into your pelvic floor, out into your hips, back into your sacrum, the base of your spine. And when you're exhaling, the whole body gets heavier and softer and melts into the ground. A few more rounds like that. If it feels good, you can start to exhale out through the mouth. Continue to the rhythm of your own breath. Sometimes when we exhale out through the mouth, it can serve a deeper sense of release. Also, if your attention tends to wander, it can serve to bring you back from disassociation and down into the body, reconnecting you with the felt sense. Let's do 4 more diaphragmatic breaths together, just like that. You'll work at the pace, the breath rhythm that works for your unique, perfect system.
When you've completed that last round, you can return to normal breathing and just rest, bathing in, basking in the effects of the practice.
This next practice, working with the viscera in the belly, still breathing deep down into the abdomen, but adding what we call neuromodulation. And really, that's just a fancy term that's describing that we're going to use the frequency of sound and let that vibration of sound frequency gently massage and emanate from the belly. This is an excellent practice if there is disassociation. If you've had a tendency to go into the freeze response, it can really support us coming back into the body, anchoring us down into the belly. And also, as we know, with the gut-brain connection, where the more that we can balance out more energy flow, more chi flow into our belly, the more it supports healthy gut flora, healthy gut-brain connection. So let's come on down to lie on our bellies. Again, you can lie resting your head on some support, knees are bent, and the hands can come to rest down on that lower abdomen. Just as we did in the previous exercise, we're going to inhale and let the lower belly inflate. And then on our exhalation, this time we're going to chant the sound VOO, V-double-O. This is a sound practice that was created by Peter Levine, one of the pioneers in somatic trauma resolution work. So let's drop down into our deep bellies. Again, feel that sense of where the back of your body is resting on and anchoring into the ground. As you inhale, take a nice slow breath into your belly. Now making the sound VOO. See if you can feel the vibration of the sound in your gut. VOO. Mind-body connection. Keep your awareness in your belly. Each breath in, fuller, slower, deeper into the abdomen. We're going to do that 3 more times today. Really noticing the feeling of the vibration. Your last round, all your awareness deep in your belly. You can relax your legs out in front now, letting your feet flop out naturally, and keeping the hands resting on the belly, just noticing the effects of the vibration, warming, moving chi flow, life force through the gut. Notice how that affects the rest of your physiology and how that affects your mind.